Welcome to the Resilient Butterfly Podcast. My goal is to share inspiring stories of healing and recovery through many diverse approaches and models. Our guests bring incredible lived experiences, insights, and/or professional expertise, each with their own unique path. While we highlight and celebrate these stories, our intention is to inform, inspire, and demonstrate resilience and creativity. This podcast does not endorse any one approach. We believe there is more than one way to heal, and we're here to showcase the resilience and possibilities that exist. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming back to Resilient Butterfly. I am your host, Pam Feinberg-Rivkin, and today we have Steve Feldman, CEO of Feinberg Consulting, with me to carry on the series that I talked about a couple weeks ago in regard to crisis and family crisis in many, many ways. Today, we're zoning in on specifically mental health crisis. And what does mental health crisis mean for families? And sometimes families have it their entire life. And then sometimes things get erupted and there's this, a real crisis. They're all crises, but a crisis in a situational factor. So thank you for coming, Steve. There's so much to talk about with mental health.
Thank you for having me again.
Yeah. So families are so lost with finding solutions, and there's so much with mental health, misdiagnoses, diagnosed sometimes when they're little, young kids with something that may not be what they are. And how do we fit in regard to helping families sort this out?
You know, I think as you bring this up, I think one of the things that we also see happen is that mental health declines or situations become more acute little by little. Mm-hmm. So it's not, in many cases, it's not necessarily one incident that happens, but it's a kind of a progressive thing. And a lot of times families aren't even aware that it's happening because it becomes like a new normal. There's so much conversation around anxiety, and anxiousness is something that is played into in society today with how fast everything moves and how social media and screen time is so intense. So I think in some cases that we talk about crisis, but people are operating at a level of discomfort where it goes on for a while.
Mm-hmm. You bring up a really good point because this could go back generations in regard to whatever is happening, and it's always simmering. And families sometimes are in crisis their entire life, and they don't, as you say, they don't realize it because that's what their normal is. Whereas another family would come in and say, hey, why do you allow that to happen? What's going on? Is this person diagnosed with this, or is that person really say manic depressive? And a lot of times that there are situations where children, adolescents, or young adults are seen by a psychiatrist, put on medications, but may not have been diagnosed appropriately. And there are similar situational things that may have not even been discussed with that particular psychiatrist. So really kind of looking at what's bothering the system, what's happening, what is the rumble that's there for this family that needs some attention, and being able to look at that in a microscope to be able to determine.
I think part of what happens and as things escalate is that there's care that's provided. It could be psychiatric care. Sometimes it could be somebody sees the same therapist for a long time. And inside of that, if there are the kinds of healing results that that somebody would hope for, if they're not happening, that's really where it becomes time to not just continue to do the same thing. Because I think a lot of times that becomes the accepted norm. You know, they have a doctor or they have a therapist or they tried therapy and it didn't work before. And in many cases, I think it's really important to recognize that if something isn't working, it's time to look closer. And I think that's really what you're
Absolutely. And sometimes what we've seen is that we get young adults, even into their 30s, that are living in the basement of their parents' home. And they haven't been able to really go out in their life and succeed. And finding out, and a lot of times families like, well, I can't get them motivated to do anything. Well, there are obviously situational things that have happened why this person is not motivated, can't leave the house, can't get out of the basement, can't get a job, can't go to school, can't finish school, all of those things and families a lot of times leave it because they don't even know what to do about that.
You bring up a really complicated situation and one that happens so much because it's not just one factor that's playing into this. The parents that have an adult child living in their home and not productive or not launching, there's a piece that they own, a very big piece, because they create the space that is allowing something to continue. So that's something that needs to be looked at. In many cases, with the story that you just told, also comes some type of substance use. In many cases, cannabis and THC use is a big thing, and the other part of it is gaming and screen time, and the combination of the environment that is allowed for and the behavior. There's a situation that gets further and further from something happening positive. And, there's not one thing that happens. A lot of times it's like, well, if they just would get a job, or if they would just get out of the basement, or if they would just, it really is a systemic thing that takes family work and takes the ability to create some boundaries and an invitation into something different that usually the person doesn't come up for the basement and raise their hand saying, I want to change.
No, because they don't even know how to change. And they've gone into their own comfort level, being able to get out of that basement, to stop them, whatever they may be using, and or the gaming, and sleeping late, and not having responsibility. They think they don't know how. And families, as I said, they don't even know how to make this happen. And there are other factors sometimes that occur that families don't even know what has happened to this young adult as a child because they've not probed, asked questions, put their head in the sand, so to speak, really looking at, because they don't want to know maybe something that happened that they can't handle with their own child. And that's so important for people to understand that has to come out, right? It's
really scary. So in fear, a lot of times, not pressing is the best way to move. To me, the thing in this area that is so exciting is that, this younger crew, even though maybe some of their friends and contemporaries have launched in life in a different way, there is the ability for healing. There is such great services available, so many opportunities. There is a tremendous young person recovery movement that exists, whether it's, some type of 12-step fellowship or other fellowships that create connection. Because one of the things that happens in the basement is isolation. And addiction and mental health grows in isolation. And then beyond that, there are those that need higher levels of care. And there are treatment programs all around this country that do such an amazing job in working with young adults to help create the life skills, recovery base, finding a passion or direction in their life. So I love when we have an opportunity to work with what appears to be something that is hopeless and provide hope and direction.
Yes, and families need help in these situations tremendously because they've gotten into the pattern of whatever has happened and they don't know how to act any differently either. And that pattern needs to be broken. They need their own healing for whatever reason that they allowed it to go on forever, for a long time, not forever.
And the discomfort of family members is often, the narrative is, if I could just help my kid, I'll be better. And the truth is, and this is like if we could scream this from the building, from the top of the building, families that do their own work. And what is their own work? Their own work is their own self-care, their own therapy, their own mutual support groups, and beyond. And really, coaching is a huge part of helping families shift from what has been to what's possible. And there is some great information and great studies based on how families improve and individuals improve in their own recovery when families are recovering right alongside of them. So you bring up a huge point, is that this isn't about creating a fix, it's about creating a whole systems change.
Mm-hmm. Because there's not just a one fix and it will go away. And even if someone were to go into an inpatient treatment, then they need guidance where they're going to go in regard to after the inpatient treatment, and the family needs guidance each step of the way in regard to how they're going to handle the situation because they're so used to whatever, as I said before.
The greatest insurance for families on the investment when they do have a loved one go to treatment is doing their own work. And the worst thing that could happen is when somebody goes away and begins a new recovery journey to come back to a system that hasn't changed. And that can't emphasize that enough.
Sure. And so in regard to families getting their own help, we will have on the series, there will be a family that will come on and talk about how they've continued to work for many, many years with us and what changes they've been able to make for themselves, which allow their loved one to also create change and healing. And this is not a fix in 30 days. This is lifetime healing. And people say, well, what do you mean? What do I have to do lifetime? We'll be in stages, right? There will not necessarily be an acute, very involved situation for a lifetime, obviously, but lifetime of changing behaviors because your behaviors, family's behaviors, are really predicted by what behaviors they learned from childhood themselves. So those are hard to break.
Absolutely. And this is a process. And, part of the blessing of what we get to do is to help guide and navigate families and individuals through this type of healing. This is much better done with a roadmap than trying to figure it out on some, by themselves.
Sure. I'm going to bring up, we will have some clinical managers, case managers on in some of these series to talk about how they work with families. And every step of the way, their families can learn this by asking us. And again, contacting us, feinbergcare.com, or our number 248-538-5425 to learn about more how they can help their loved one and help their family system heal. Thank you for joining the conversation today. If you are seeking help for yourself or a loved one, please reach out to our Feinberg Consulting team at 248-538-5425. That's 248-538-5425, and check out our website at feinbergcare.com. I'm grateful for our guests and all who have joined us today. Make sure you follow us on Apple, Spotify, or anywhere you listen to podcasts.